Hi, I'm Joe.
I'm Joe's mom.
And we're Eastside Vibes.
It is Packers Sunday in Wisconsin.
Yup. It's obviously the first day of the football season. My mom has her Packer shirt on because of that. We're pretty excited about that. It'll be an interesting year.
And I think they're playing, is this the longest rivalry they've ever had? They're playing the Chicago Bears. This is the longest in NFL history, right?
Yeah, well, I think they were a thing before the NFL.
Yeah, so very exciting. Packer Sunday. Woo-woo!
But, so, anyway, get back to the music here. When I first started this, or when we first started these videos, I wanted to show my mom a lot of like new music that was coming out, stuff that I write about on my blog. I think it would be cool to get into that, and we've done it a little bit.
Right.
But to be honest, there hasn't been a lot of stuff that's come out lately that there's been stuff I'm still writing a lot, but there's stuff that I like, but I don't think it's stuff that I would like show you necessarily. Mm-hmm. So I decided last week we would start, talking about artists from the past that I love,
right?
Who have a very big impact on music today, like the Gorillaz,
right.
And we'll get back into the new stuff. I think there's some good new music that's supposed to come out in the next couple months.
Yep, Olivia Rodrigo dropped her album on Friday.
Yeah, and my mom's a school teacher. A lot of her students love that record, so...
One of them even said to me, "Did you know that she's dropping the album?" So I said to him, "Oh, we'll have to do that one." And then he's like, "Yeah." So when I went back to school and I told my student we're going to do it, he was so excited, just thrilled that we were going to do it.
I've already been writing about and listening to that one, and I like it a lot, so...
Awesome.
That'll be fun to get into.
Okay.
But anyway, the artist that I decided to talk about this week is Kanye West. Before I get into my thoughts, what do you think about when you think of Kanye?
The first thing I think about is the Kardashians, unfortunately. But I think about it from the perspective of, and we just talked about this, that he obviously had mental health issues before this, or he had things he was dealing with before he met the Kardashians, but I just believe that when he got involved with them, things just started to go south eventually, and I think that's what made him not be as popular now as what he was then. But I've always liked Kanye's music, and I would say I have like top 3 songs of all time for me. One is 7 by Prince, the other is One More Try by George Michael, and my third one is Jesus Walks. I love that song, have always loved that song, so I'm excited we're doing Kanye.
I think, I don't think she realized when I said let's talk about the College Dropout, that Jesus Walks is from this record.
No, I didn't. I thought it was from a later record.
Yeah, and that shows how impactful Kanye has been since the early 2000s.
Correct.
That song is so old, and there's a couple other songs on here that are still extremely popular and relevant today.
Yes, you hear them played on the radio all the time.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about Kanye is I personally think that he's one of the most influential people, not even on, obviously on music. In my personal opinion, it's not even in my personal opinion, tons of artists today, most of them are at least, somewhat inspired by Kanye.
Yes, yes.
Everyone, you can hear it in everyone's music.
Their beats, the way you were saying that the way they take other people's music.
Yeah, the sampling. The auto-tuning.
Yes.
Even if you listen to rock music from today, a lot of it's using auto-tune, and who was doing that before him? I actually, what's interesting listening to this album, people try to say that T-Pain was doing that style of auto-tune first, and Kanye got into it on 808s and Heartbreaks, which is an album that we'll talk about eventually.
Okay.
But there's auto-tune on this album.
Oh, there is.
And so this came out way before that. Way before, so no, he was doing it before anyone, and I don't think people really realize it's on this record.
We were also talking about that he's influence in fashion too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's massive, and obviously everyone knows Adidas and Yeezy. He's had all these iconic outfits throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I realized recently that I think is funny, that he's taken major inspiration from the anime Akira. Like, to the point, I was showing my mom outfits that he's worn that are iconic Kanye outfits. They're just outfits from that movie.
Right. They had a side-by-side of him and then the outfits from the movie, and it was like, oh, okay.
Like, everyone, I mean, he is a fashion genius, but he's just taken the outfits from this anime from the 80s, and people didn't even realize it.
Right.
I mean, people did, but it's so spot on that it's pretty funny.
It's very spot on.
But like I said, we're going to talk about the college dropout. If you've watched our videos before, we're going to do this a little differently. We're kind of going to go back and forth with our favorite songs. So
he'll talk about his favorite songs. I'll talk about my favorite songs.
The first song that we want to bring up is one of my mom's. It is "We Don't Care." So why don't you tell us why you picked that song, why you like that song?
Well, first of all, I love the intro. I think the intro's hysterical. It's very short, but it's a guy telling Kanye, come up with a song that the college graduates can listen to and that it's appropriate and all that kind of stuff. And then when you listen to the song, it's definitely not something that you would play at a college graduation. But the depth, the meaning of it, especially from where he grew up in Chicago, and was really, it's quite something. So, for example, he's really talking about the poor people of Chicago, and the fact that young kids would look up to the drug dealers because they would see the drug dealers walking around with loads of money. And he also brings up the fact that after school programs were dropped or have been dropped, and that because of that, you're pushing children to look that way. But within the song, he also says they're not making all their money doing drug dealing, which is a terrible thing to do. They're working hard doing other things as well. So it's like that's not the only thing they're doing. They're doing side jobs. They're working at McDonald's or something because the only way they can survive is to do what they're doing. And it's obviously one of those where you don't want to go down that route, but it's the reality of what is happening.
Yeah, where they're from.
Right.
A lot of people, I feel like, because of the way Kanye looks and talks,
right,
don't realize that he's from the south side of Chicago,
right,
or think about it.
Right.
They hear that his mom was a professor, and she was, but she was like a professor of English. Like, they don't make a lot of money.
No.
And he didn't really have a dad.
Right.
So
right.
They did grow up in like very impoverished circumstances. And Kanye talked about that a lot, like early in his career, but once he got all the money and fame, he didn't talk about it as much.
Okay.
But that is where he comes from. And I think the message of the song is cool because you can't blame people for who they are and where they're from.
No.
That, like, the reason they're doing what they're doing is because they have to do what they have to do.
To survive, definitely.
There's a really famous, like, I think it was on Nancy Grace.
Okay.
Famous T.I. interview where he says that people are a product of their environment, and if you want to change the product, change the environment.
Yes. And
I've always believed that. You, like, try to, like, get mad at people for, like, Milwaukee, where we live, is a very good example of this.
Yes.
Look, I don't know how you can blame people for, getting into, like, dealing drugs or whatever they're doing, when you just drive like 3 or 4 blocks west of here and see what it looks like.
Right.
They don't put money into the city, and
they only put it into certain parts of the
city.
They
only put it into certain parts of the city. They don't put money into the education system or anything. They don't put it into like the roads in like certain areas. Like, it's like a lawless country out there. That's what it's going to be. And he's trying to like highlight that. There's a lot of other points on this record where it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. I know another song you picked is kind of about this. It's kind of or it's like referencing the fact that like people like try to like push the idea of going to college and doing this, and like, one, it's not a reality for a lot of people.
Correct.
And two, it doesn't even, like, help you all the time.
Right. Right.
Sometimes, like, you have to do other ways or find other ways to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But the second song that we're going to talk about, my first pick, is All Falls Down. I really like this song has the chipmunk soul sound that he made popular on this record.
What do you mean by chipmunk soul?
It's like a lot of people, when they think about this album and his next album, they kind of refer to that sound.
Okay.
And I think a lot of hip hop artists like took inspiration from what he was doing here.
Okay.
But it's where they take soul music and like pitch it up.
Oh, so like like Elvin and the Chipmunks or something. Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and like a lot of these melodies have like that sound.
Interesting.
And I really like the vocals from, I think it's Sylvina Johnson on the chorus.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's just like a really fun like pop rap song. Mm-hmm. It probably didn't age super well, even though I like it. But one thing that I think is funny is my mom's really into like lyricism and stuff, and when I brought up the song, she's like, "Oh, like that one didn't hit for me as much." But that song, like the lyrics of that song, actually are something I think you would like and resonate with, because it's about like he in the first verse he talks about a woman, and he talks about himself, about people being obsessed with buying expensive things for status because they're insecure about themselves.
Right.
It's like he's literally saying, I always have these watches on, I buy all this stuff because I want to look cool, because I don't think that I am cool.
Wow.
And
I miss that. I'll be honest, I miss that.
He has other, like, another one of my favorite songs, which is on the next album, Late Registration, is also kind of about this.
Okay.
He, like, brings this up a lot, where he has, like, this, like, back and forth, like, and I honestly could see myself feeling the same way if I had, like, lots of money like that. Where you want to buy these things to look cool in the eyes of the people that are idolizing you, but you're doing that because you don't actually feel that way.
Right. Well, they say a lot of athletes, once they get those big contracts, they go out there and they buy all these expensive things because they want people to look up and, in their minds, respect them, not only because they're athletes, but because they have all this expensive stuff, too.
I think that once you get to... There's like... People say... there's a famous quote. There's levels to this. It's really applicable in, like, celebrity culture. Like, once you get to a certain spot, you know, you're an up-and-coming pop artist, you're at the VMAs and you meet Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift is wearing a dress that's like $500,000.
Right.
And you're
Dolce and Gabbana or something.
You're
right.
like, I have to do that too.
Right.
Like you brought up football and or sport athletes, I should say. I don't know if you've ever seen that 30 for 30 on Netflix about the NFL and about like agents preying on like young athletes and like getting them to get into bad investment deals. Oh. So they end up losing all their money.
Right. So they
talk about in this a little documentary about how, and like I can like apply to the Packers. Say you're a new NFL player, you're a rookie, and you go to training or you go to practice, and Aaron Rodgers shows up in a Ferrari. You're like, I need a Ferrari too because Aaron Rodgers showed up in a Ferrari.
Right.
The thing is, for the NFL in particular, a lot of people don't know this, they only pay you in the season.
Oh.
So if you make $4 million in your first year, you only get money in the season. You don't get it for the rest of the year until the season starts again in August.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you get your signing bonus up front.
Okay.
And a lot of times the signing bonus like also pays for your agent fees, your lawyers, all that stuff. So people like don't realize once they get that money, they buy a $2 million house and a $500,000 to $1 million car. Now that's $3 million of your $4 million. You only have $1 million for the rest of the year. You have to pay taxes on that house. You have to, You know,
so a
like
lot
it
of times
adds up.
they just lose.
That's how they go broke.
They go broke, then they have to sell all the things that they have.
Yeah, you tear your ACL in your third year, you're
Right.
out of the league, and now you're not making no money.
Wow.
You didn't graduate college.
Wow.
You don't really have skills because all you did was try to make the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have skills to get just a regular job.
Right. Wow. Wow.
You have this house that you can't pay taxes on, you file for bankruptcy. Like, that's how this stuff works.
Right.
And how can you, I mean, it's like a sad reality, and you can say, how can you blame people? I could see how anyone could do that when you get to that point. And you
Right.
think you're not going to until you get to that point.
Right.
But, yeah, that's a roundabout way of why I like that song.
Yeah. Wow.
More because of the message, not as much because of the sound. It has like a good sound, but it just sounds a little old.
Right. The message is powerful. It's a really powerful message.
The third song we're going to talk about is another one of Kanye's most famous songs. I would say is "Jesus Walks." She brought it up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you tell us why you like that song so much?
I think this is a really powerful song because of the fact that even at that point in time, he's talking about Jesus and God, especially coming from his first. This isn't his first album. This is his first album.
No, this is his first album.
From his first album, he's bringing that up in this case. And it comes through later when you start to hear other songs on there that you can see that he has faith because of what's happened to him in his life. But I love at the very beginning when he says we're at war with terrorism, racism, and ourselves, because he's just saying we're fighting ourselves all the time. And if we keep this fighting, it's not going to get better. It's not going to, make things better for us. I think the impact, or I actually read about this, that the impact of this song has actually increased the prevalence of religious themes in contemporary rap and hip hop. So a lot more rappers and hip hop artists are feeling better about using Jesus or using God in their songs. And then this was really interesting. You're going to be surprised at this one. So Shay Smith, who helped co-write it as well, he found this song by a choir of reformed drug dealers singing it in New York. So that's where the idea of it came from.
Oh, wow.
So then from there, they put their own spin on it. And when Kanye added the army sounds to it, those army sounds are supposed to sound like God's soldiers. So obviously they changed it up. But the fact that it came from a choir of reformed drug dealers, that blew me away when I saw that.
I really like it because I think Jesus Walks, first of all, might have aged the best out of everything on this record.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could see this instrumental coming out today.
Oh, definitely.
It sounds very new for that.
Yes.
Like, for that time, nothing sounded like that.
Right.
And it actually brings up a theme in the first verse of something you talked about on the first song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about, like, coming from Chicago and having, like, this fighter's mentality because of the circumstances he went through. And that's kind of why he has this drive. Mm-hmm. Because, like, he had to. Because when you come from there, you have to fight to even live, to survive, like he says on the song. Right.
So that's probably why he even put in those army sounds too, because he's showing you have to fight for what you need.
Like that. And then the second verse is, I'm not a religious person, but I appreciate wanting to talk about things that are taboo and not cool in pop culture and in music.
Right.
He's like, when people talk about like LGBT stuff in music, I always love that, even though I'm not an LGBT person, because I just like when people are afraid, or I like when they aren't afraid to be themselves.
Correct.
Like, unapologetically from the beginning, Kanye was like, I am a person of faith. Yep. And I'm going to talk about that, and at the end of the song, he has a line that I love where he brings up how, like, hopefully I'll be able to walk into a club one day and hear, like, the chant Jesus Walks.
Yes.
And that has happened. So
yes, right.
He got what he wanted.
Right.
I think that's such, like, a cool thing that he was able to push like you said, like he got other rappers to be okay with talking about this, and he was able to push this message that he wanted to push.
Right.
And he's still doing that today in his music.
He is.
He just had like the gospel album come out like last year or 2 years ago.
Right.
So he's still doing it.
Right. He definitely is. The next song we're going to talk about again is one of my songs, Get 'Em High.
Yeah, it was Get 'Em High.
Yeah. So for me, it's not so much the lyricism of this song, it's the beat. I love the beat of this song, and it continues throughout the whole song. And then it has who is it? How do you say his name?
I think it's Talib Kweli.
And then Common is on here as well. And there's this like chorus when the three of them, they're like na 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 together. They say it a couple times, and then there's even parts in it where the music just drops, like it's silent, and then they go into the next part. I love the sound of this song. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, this song, it's funny. They have the Talib Kweli feature. He was from Gangstar.
Okay.
And I mentioned before this that I think that song, or this song, reminds me a lot of their music.
Right.
It has like a underground, like gritty, like 90s hip hop sound.
Definitely.
And no one makes this kind of music anymore.
No.
But
it's too bad because it's really good music.
It's just it's a cool sound, and like she said, as far as like the lyrics go, this is probably one of the least impactful ones.
Correct.
But which is funny because of the features.
Right.
Like you would think, especially with Common.
Right.
But one thing I really like about it is how Talib Kweli's voice kind of contrasts Kanye's and Common's.
Right.
He has like that higher tone, I guess.
Right. So when the three of them
More
do that
nasally.
little chorus, it's really distinct.
Yeah.
And it's powerful with that point. It fits. It's so good with how the song is beating and moving. It is really good.
Yeah, it's just like a good. If you're into like old school hip hop, like this is a song that you would probably love.
This
and
is
it's
the one.
not a song that's as popular as a lot of the other stuff on this record.
Right. I don't even know if I've ever really heard it prior to this record, but I like it a lot.
Yeah. So our next song is, I know my mom doesn't really like this one, but I like it for a couple of reasons. It's New Workout Plan. And one, I think it's just like a funny, like tongue-in-cheek thing.
It is.
You know?
It is.
It's like supposed to be a joke. Like, I know she didn't like some of like the lyricism, but like it's a joke, like what he's doing.
Right.
But the reason I really like it is more the second half of the song, where it's a lot less lyricism, more of just like the instrumental. Mm-hmm. And it sounds very, very inspirational on a lot of like what he did after this. Okay. I think out of everything on this record, this probably relates to his later music the most.
So it's interesting, he didn't just do different music every time. He went back to music he did before and used that in his new things. He was always doing that. That's great. That's really a musician.
The end of this song, I had to show it to my mom. Literally, I was like, I don't know how you don't understand what I'm like referencing. Why I really love this song.
He kept saying, "Listen to it." Listen. I'm like,
listen
I can't hear it. I can't hear it. And then he had to play it for me.
The end of this song is the sample that he uses in "Stronger," which is one of his biggest songs ever.
Right.
From I think Graduation.
Right.
So, like, Kanye was like going back to his old music and then using it in his new music. Right. And I think the only other person I've seen that's done that a lot is Drake, who was very inspired by Kanye.
Yes.
It's part of funny how they have such a big beef, because I think that Drake is almost like Kanye's like kid when it comes to music.
I agree.
Like, not as much like the lyricism, although Drake early in his career had very like deep lyrics. Actually, he even more relates to Kanye, because Kanye's lyricism probably got a little worse as he got older, because he just had stopped having things to say.
Right.
When you get to become a billionaire, when you came from the south side of Chicago, well, at that point, what do you even have to say? He won. He beat life.
He needs to do an album on the Kardashians.
Yeah. Like, he needs like something to have some. Maybe this downfall will be good for him.
Right.
To inspire him to make great music again.
I agree, and I don't think he is not a person who stays down.
No,
and truly, when
he
you
will
hear
come back.
With this album, he's talking a lot about, like we said, not negative things so much, but things he had to go through that were
Yeah.
really difficult. So when you take the last part of that song and it's going into Stronger, it's showing that he's a stronger person now. He's grown from what happened to him, and I don't know if he's grown from the album, but he's grown from the content of the album.
Yeah. And another thing about the sound of this song, I didn't really think about this until recently, when we decided we were going to talk about this. And I knew that Stronger is like obviously a sample of Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger by Daft Punk. Another one of my favorite album or artists that I think we'll talk about at some point. Mm-hmm. But New Workout Plan is too then.
Right, because you said the Harder, Stronger, that Daft Punk came out with that before Kanye took it.
Yeah. So the fact that New Workout Plan has that like at the end was also obviously inspired. So he did it like twice, where he like took like the Daft, and I think a lot of his music has inspiration from Daft Punk actually. So
yes, definitely.
A lot of his instrumentals, so like that makes sense. But I just found that super cool. We will talk about Daft Punk at some point. I know my mom's really into lyricism. Their music's not about lyricism, but it's so good.
They're unique. They are unique.
And they are so inspirational in new music. It's crazy. I don't think people really realize that.
They do a lot of collaboration. Collaboration.
A ton, yeah.
Right. And that's really how I know of them, is because of the collaborations that they do.
But, so our next song is another one of mine. It's Slow Jams. Slow Jams is probably like another one of the most popular songs on this record, which is why I thought it was interesting that she didn't know it.
No, I didn't.
Because before we went into this, because it's just I think it's because of the live performance that he did with John Legend, who is on this song that a lot of people don't realize he was like also a Rockefeller producer like Kanye, who got his start that way and then made his own music later in his career.
I could hear John Legend on it, but I was thinking, John Legend was popular at that time. Yeah. That's what I was thinking in my head.
No, I think he might have even still been in college at this time.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, and then it also has Jamie Foxx and Twista.
Wow. A lot of people on that one.
There's a couple. I think, like I said, I think one of the reasons the song is so popular is not because of the sound, but because of like these videos. There's that live performance I mentioned. Mm-hmm. There's also another funny video of like Jamie Foxx being interviewed about this song. Mm-hmm. How when Kanye showed him this, he was like, because there was nothing else that sounded like this. He's like, this stinks, dude. Like, why would you want this on me? And he's like, trust me, like, I need your vocals on this. And then it became a #1 hit.
Right.
I think it's Twista's only, like, #1 hit that he was on.
Right.
A Chicago underground legend, so it's really cool that Kanye, like, incorporated him on this song. Mm-hmm. But, that video is really funny, Jamie Foxx. Like, and then he obviously was wrong.
Right.
Because it's such a great song and such a popular song.
I think that leads back to something I was telling him. They had the Netflix series about Kanye West, and I was watching a portion of it where he would take mixtapes every day and go into the Rockefeller program, or the Rockefeller business, and he would go into all these offices and be like, give this to Jay-Z, can I see Jay-Z, is he there? And they would just all kind of be like, here's Kanye again. And then the next time around it was like, here's Kanye, and he kept doing it over and over. And I think one of the reasons is that, like Jamie Foxx, they were like, we don't like this music, no. And then eventually one of them hit, and I can't remember which one it was, but one of them hit, and it was, I think they talk about it in the album actually, that one of them hit, and then from there, that's where, the collaboration started.
One of the reasons, or probably the main reason I love this song is because and once we talk about more and more music, you'll see this, and one of my friends recently was like, I didn't know that you were like this. I'm a huge fan of R&B music. I really love R&B music.
Yes, you do.
And this is an R&B song.
Yes, you're listening to all the other songs, and then it's called Slow Jams. It really is a slow jam.
Well, it's like the chorus is referencing all these like classic R&B artists like Marvin Gaye, Luther Vandross. Yeah, no, I'm a huge. I hope we'll definitely get into more R&B. I'm a big R&B
I like
guy.
that. I like that.
And this is the only song on the album that has like a real R&B sound. And Kanye does a lot of R&B later in his career.
Yes, he does.
And this is more of an older style of R&B.
Right.
Another thing that's funny about it is like after a new workout plan, that is like an upbeat like club style song.
Right.
And the beginning of this track, Jamie Foxx is like, I was talking to all these ladies, and they were like, we need like a slow song. Like we hear a million like dance songs in the club, and I just want to like chill.
Right.
Then he goes with this like chill, like sultry R&B track.
Right.
And yeah, no, I just think that's a really cool idea.
Right.
And it's a really good song in my opinion. Really interesting song. The next one we were going to talk about is School Spirit, and you can tell us why you like that song so much.
So I like the intro part of it, School Spirit 1, because it's so relevant. It is. You have children who go to college, and when they go to college, they come out thinking, I'm going to get this great job, I'm going to be making all this money, but suddenly they come out and the only job they can find is working for the Gap or Abercrombie and Fitch, and then they are making less money than people who don't even have the college degrees. And it's really brought up in the intro, in the School Spirit 1. And then when he starts talking about singing about school, or rapping about school spirit itself, it really comes out there. And I feel that in School Spirit, it's talking about, I'm going to be honest and say, a lot of what we did as parents. At the moment where you guys were younger, it was always the push to, you got to go to college, and his brother and sister graduated from college, but it took your brother 7 years, something like that, to graduate, and you went for 1 year.
Yeah, I didn't really go to college.
Right, but your career now is amazing. He has an amazing career. Bringing it up is because he brings up in here that his mom wanted him to go to college. And then he dropped out and he said, I'm starting my own business. And she's like, you're going back to college. And he went back and he's like, no, this isn't for me. And today, as a teacher today, I love the fact that college is not pushed as much in the high schools. They have all of these paths you can take that are non-4-year colleges. Your cousin is doing that, Michael. And I love the fact that they do that. But when you guys were younger, they didn't have that, and it's too bad.
Well, it's interesting that this song came out in 2004.
Right.
And that was before, like, I was like in high school, way before I was in high school. So this idea was like big back then. I think that's when I'm interested in like the history of all this stuff. I think that's when like credit cards got big.
Oh, okay.
And that's when like colleges started to get like really like popular, and people were pushed into like getting credit cards to pay for college.
Yes.
And they were pushed to do that by the banks, who were just trying to screw people over, so they're in debt for the rest of their lives. And this song, like, I've had this idea for years, and I had to like get through to my family where the college thing wasn't for me.
Right.
She mentioned my brother, and my brother does not use his degree.
No, neither does his sister.
They went to college and they don't even use it anyway.
Right, and that's part of what comes out in School Spirit 1, is he talks about the fact that I have this degree, and he brings up, so I'm working at the Gap. I worked my way up to be an assistant, but I'm an assistant to the assistant, and she's the niece of the head guy, and she's making more than me, and she didn't go to college.
After School Spirit 2, they have the Little Jimmy skit, which is like a funnier version.
Right.
But like in that song, he's also talking about how like all my dad did is get all these degrees, and my friend's parents went out and made money. But at least when my dad died, he gave me all those degrees, and now I'm gonna get all these degrees,
and then I'm gonna pass them on to my children.
Yeah,
it's like,
But no, like pass on money to your children, not degree. Like
Right.
what do these degrees do for you?
Right, right. And it's not to say going to college and getting a degree isn't good, but it's
Well,
just
if you know what you want to do.
exactly,
And, yeah.
exactly. But if you don't know what you want to do and you have other ideas that aren't college related, I feel that schools today have now finally grasped that idea, and they've said, let's start to have and create programs that will help students go on to paths that they might want.
Maybe they're not being pushed to have those ideas anymore.
Right.
Because the workforce has gotten the way it's gotten.
Right.
And yeah, when I was, like, she brought it up, when I was growing up, they did, like, push the idea you have to go to college.
We did.
To get a job, and it just wasn't for me.
Right. And the high school you went to pushed too.
I tried, and I couldn't do it. Like, I don't know if I just have, like, bad ADHD that wasn't diagnosed, and I just don't want to take Adderall, but, like, I couldn't even focus in school.
Right.
And I had a really hard time in high school focusing in school. I, like, pushed myself to be able to do it.
Right.
But once I got out of it, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I really wanted to go to school to be a writer, but I was kind of, like, convinced by some people in my family that you can't make money doing that. And that is partially true, which is why I started my own business and, like, do my own blog.
The music blog, yes.
And why I want to do these videos, because you can make money on your own, like, doing your own thing. But if I try to go write for Pitchfork or something, I probably have a portfolio where I could get a job with these companies.
Right, right. You've created a big portfolio.
I would make, like, $15 an hour, and it would take, like, 10, 15 years to work my way up to a point where I'm actually doing anything.
Right.
And I was like, why don't I work hard with my hands, like, in a factory, and make my own money so I can do my own thing and hopefully have my own business. At least if my blog blows up to the point where, like, that is, like, my primary source of income, which it's not right now, I own the whole thing.
Right.
All the money that comes from that goes to me,
yours.
or if I have employees, to my employees.
It's yours. And it's he had a really cool thing happen.
Shout out Atlanta.
Shout out Atlanta. They did a small interview with him, but I love the fact that at the beginning it said that you were the creator and owner of East Side Vibes, and I like the fact that they were saying he's the owner, because he is. He created this. He created the blog. He's created this. He's the creator. He put this together on his own. And it is successful. I mean, it really is successful. And I love that the Shout Out Atlanta does that for people. They put them out there to be able to get other people to see them. And I'm proud of him for that.
So the last song that we're going to talk about is the most popular song on this record.
Right. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
It's technically mine, but, like, it's more both of our songs. It's Through the Wire. That song just has everything about it is cool. Even though it doesn't have a sound that aged super well as far as, like, what would be popular today. It's like an outlier. Like, this is a big example of that Chipmunk soul sound, obviously.
Yeah, yes.
It literally takes that Shaka Khan sample and does the Chipmunk thing.
Oh, okay. All right,
Yeah.
that's the Chipmunk thing.
And she's a soul artist, so,
Right.
like, that's like where they really got this idea.
Oh, okay.
They don't, like, really, although I think Chipmunk soul inspired R&B and melodic hip hop. Like, there's not a lot of, like, that specific thing today.
Okay.
But the main thing about this song is what he's talking about.
Right.
It tells the story about how it was, but while he was making this album, he was in the studio and had a really bad day. I think he had a fight with Ludacris.
Okay.
And I wonder if that was while they were recording Breathe In, Breathe Out from this album.
Oh, okay.
But he ended up, like, crashing his, I think it was a Lexus, either a Lexus or Ferrari.
Okay.
And almost dying. Like, he got what do you call it, like flown to the hospital.
Right. They said that he says in the song that when his mom got to the hospital, he was on life support.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did. He almost died. I didn't realize he was making this album when that happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was in the
Wow.
process of making the album.
Wow.
And this ended up being the last song recorded for the album, and it was the first single, and he's like one of the only artists where like his first single was like a #1 hit. His
Wow.
first like official single.
Right.
Not a lot of artists have done that. Olivia Rodrigo did that actually.
Right, yes.
But not a lot of artists have done that because that's pretty crazy to do that.
Right.
And at the end of the track, he talks about how he recorded this song while his mouth was still wired shut.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear that throughout the song. It sounds like he's a lisp or something.
Right. His voice sounds different than it did
Almost
on the rest
muffled,
of the album.
yeah.
Right.
That's
right.
because his mouth is wired shut, and he still
Right.
recorded the song. That's crazy.
That's he wanted to make it, that's for sure. And yeah, it's beautiful in the sense that it really gets to the soul of who he is, that he was not going to give up and say, I'm done. And he even brought that up, that when the doctor told me that they have to put a plate in my mouth, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. My career is over. And obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, like you can tell through a lot of songs on this record, and this one in particular, he had like that hunger and that drive to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point later in his career, you'll notice that he realized that he is the best.
Yes.
And but that music is still great. But at this time, like you can listen to this for inspiration. You know?
Right.
Like this is something where it's like you can do it. Like one of the reasons I love this song and I listen to it a lot to this day is because of that feeling. Because I want to like convince myself that like you can do it. Like
Correct.
push, like work hard.
Yes.
I'll spend a lot of time outside of work, which I work a lot, just working on like videos and writing and stuff.
Right.
Because if you want to like get something, put your time into that because that's how you do it.
Right. And the fact that he had his jaw wired shut and he still finished the album really shows that, as he's saying, work hard and don't let things hold you back. Don't let a wired mouth hold you back.
Yeah. That's a really good way to close it out. Overall, I mean, as far as Kanye albums go, this one, I really like this one, but it's probably not my absolute favorite. It's a great album, and I didn't realize how many songs on this record that I still really like. But as far as the whole thing goes, it just didn't age as well. I think it's still great.
I think some of the songs age, like Through the Wire and Jesus Walks, but the other ones, no.
It's still like great music, and it's great for the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's comparing it to like what's popular today, like...
Right.
It sounds old,
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, I still think it's like a high 8 album if I'm giving it a ranking.
Okay.
Probably like an 8.6, 8.7. I don't want to go higher than that. I don't know if there's anything Kanye where I'd go much lower than that besides some of his like newest stuff.
Okay.
But I don't want to go higher because one of his albums is like one of my favorite albums of all time, if not my favorite. So I want to like leave room for higher rankings, but I could probably give it like an 8.6. But it's really good, and there's a lot of like really inspirational stuff on it. And if you're looking for like motivational music, this is a record to definitely go back to.
Right. I'd heard of College Dropout, but I had never listened to the full album. And now he's saying he's listened to all of the albums, so he's seen the progression and how he's gotten better and how things have kind of leveled out. But for me, this was my first introduction to an entire Kanye West album. And then again, I was realizing, oh my gosh, these songs are still popular today. I've listened to this album probably 10 times in the last week because I really like it. I like the lyricism. Some of it is really funny. Some of it is serious, but he just puts it all together. And so for me, being a first-time listener to this album, I would probably give it the same that you did. And because I'm excited to hear more, I mean, I don't know what his future albums sound like. I would say I'd probably give it about an 8.6 as well.
One thing you brought up about the lyricism is that it's funny and serious, and you can hear this is like the basis for what he did in his whole career.
Okay.
Because a lot of his stuff, like he has songs like Yeezus is like a pretty serious album. A lot of it's about racial injustice and black and white inequality.
Right. Actually, I do know that album, and I would rate that album higher than this
but
album.
We'll get to Yeezus eventually. There's also Bound 2 on there, which is like the one where like Kim Kardashian's on the motorcycle with him naked in the music video, and it's like a very just like ridiculous track.
Yeah.
So Kanye always did that, where he just throw in these like weird like tongue-in-cheek sexual songs in there just as a joke.
Yeah.
Right in between like songs about like politics or whatever. That's
just
like a
to
really
lighten
cool
the mood
thing.
a little.
Yeah.
Just to lighten the
So
mood.
you can tell he had like a formula that he gained from this record.
Interesting.
But yeah, before we go, I know my mom likes to bring up a quote, so you can read your quote.
So I was trying to look at what people thought about this album, and there was one reaction that I found to College Dropout that I thought was really interesting. This person was talking about Through the Wire, and they said that it was certainly an eye-catching one, with an opening title card about how Kanye had his jaw wired shut after a car accident. The implication was that Through the Wire was not only a single heralding an exciting new hip-hop star, but it was a triumph of the human spirit, the fact that he was able to go through it. And they also say what a brave and courageous way to assert your resolve in a calamitous setback. So he wasn't afraid to just be woe is me. He went forward with it, and they feel that it sounds very much like Gloria Stefan's song Coming Out of the Dark. And Coming Out of the Dark is a song that she wrote after she was in a horrific bus accident while she was on tour. And the same thing with her. She almost died, but she came back from it, and she sang about it as well, just like Kanye did too.
Kanye, like I mentioned earlier, he always had like that fight and that drive, or at least in the beginning you could really hear it. And like he almost died, and like that pushed him to probably become who he became. Right. It's a really cool way to close this out, because it's a motivational thing, an inspirational thing for anyone who thinks or wants to do something. Like, you can do it. You know where Kanye came from, and he didn't come from money, and he fought for this. Like you mentioned, he would just go drop his tapes off at Rockefeller, all the executives at Rockefeller, until something hit, and one day it did, and look what it became. Right. And, like, I know you always talk about how you like Eminem. Eminem was, like, 29 or 30, like, when he got famous. It took a while. Right, but he didn't give up either. He was just pushing it for years, since he was a teenager, to be a rapper. So, like, you can fight for it, and it may not happen overnight, but it can happen. It can. You just have to keep pushing and fighting. But, with that being said, that's our opinions on Kanye's The College Dropout. We'll get into more Kanye in the near future, I'm sure. But I'm Joe. I'm Joe's mom. And we're Eastside Vibes. And thank you. Have a great day. Bye.